So basically our group have been interested mainly in 3 lines of research, all of them involving ayahuasca. So the first line of research is dedicated to understanding the acute effects of ayahuasca, and by understanding, all I mean is to bring a scientific representation to what we already know from an intuitive perspective of people that have been drinking ayahuasca for a long time. So what we are doing basically on the first set of experiments is trying to check how are some of the effects of ayahuasca represented in our brain. The second line of research started with a collaboration with Jordi's group. We have a nice collaboration, and we have this collaboration that looked at the long-term effects of ayahuasca, and that is something that we are becoming more and more interested. I include Jordi in this we. And the third line of research is more devoted on evaluating the antidepressant effects of ayahuasca. So the first line of research used basically, it was our first experiment with ayahuasca. So we recruited experienced individuals from the Santo Daime Church, and we asked them to perform an fMRI experiment before and during the effects of ayahuasca. All of them had at least 15 to 20 years of experience with ayahuasca. And they performed this experiment. Basically what we found, these are the 2 main results that we have so far on these experiments. So basically in one experiment we would ask them to mentally visualize things before and during the effects of ayahuasca. And the results we have, it's very intriguing, I'd say, because basically what we found is that in these regions, and these colored regions that you're observing in this image on the left, basically what we are saying is that all of these regions had an increased activity during the ayahuasca effects when these individuals were with their eyes closed, trying to imagine, to have a vivid mental image. And what we see here basically is that these regions, when the individuals, when the individuals are under the effect of ayahuasca, what this image represents are the regions where the activity was just as great or was even with the activity when the individuals had their eyes open looking at something. So, meaning that what we are speculating with these results, and that's the title of the paper, is basically seeing with the eyes shut. So you're not looking at something, you have your eyes shut, you're imagining something, and you have activity on increased activity during the ayahuasca effects when the individuals are mentally generating images. The second result that comes on the right, it was basically looking at 2 different networks. So we were interested in the default mode network, which you have heard already. And basically what we found was a decreased activity of the default mode network, a change in connectivity of the posterior cingulate cortex, the same region that Jordi just described, and changes in another network that's called the salience network, so an increased activity on the salience network. The default mode network has been related with many things, but with the structure of thinking or spontaneous thinking, that might be a good substrate for the default mode network might be a good substrate for that construct. Spontaneous thinking. So the activity of the default mode network decreases. The second thing that we found is that the activity of the salience network increases. What is the salience network? So it's a network that's involved when we are here, you're paying attention to what I'm saying, and then all of a sudden someone screams in the back of the room. Everyone will look at it very intuitively. You would look at it because that stimuli has a salience to it. So this is the type of stimuli that the Salience network it might be descriptive of. The second line of research is more dedicated to long-term effects of ayahuasca. So this started with a collaboration we had with Jordi and this data that Jordi already mentioned. So basically, what we were studying here were changes in cortical thickness, so in brain structure, with individuals that have a lot of experience with ayahuasca. So on the long term, what are the changes that you might see when you compare individuals that have a lot of experience with ayahuasca with individuals that don't have experience with ayahuasca. So basically what you see is a decreased cortical thickness of the posterior cingulate cortex and an increased cortical thickness of the medial prefrontal cortex, that region that appears in yellow. The third line of research that we are interested is testing the antidepressant effects of ayahuasca. We have two studies on that. The first one is the study that Jordi presented. So we first did an open label study in which the patient and the experimenter knows that they're taking an active substance. We did not use a placebo. And this first experiment was run in 6 individuals, in 6 patients with depression. We increased the number of individuals that participated in this study, and this is the result of the second study. So this study represents the results of 17 patients. So we had 17 patients going through this open label study again. More to test feasibility, to test how depressive patients will deal with the ayahuasca experience. And basically what we see here, as Jordi mentioned already, this first part of the graph, before that gap, refers to the periods during the acute effects of ayahuasca. The 2 lines you see, the red and the blue line, are traditional scales that measure depressive symptoms. So you have the MADRS scale and the Hamilton D scale. So these are the 2 scales. What we see is that during the acute effects of ayahuasca, you have already a significant reduction on the depressive symptoms. And as Jordi mentioned, curiously, that had a prolonged effect for 21 days. So if you look at the scales, you see that they reduce and they keep reduced for up to 21 days. What is the huge limitation of this study? So can we already say that any psychedelic have an antidepressant effect? Using the scientific standards, no, we cannot say that. All these studies that have been conducted so far with ayahuasca and with psilocybin, they did not control for the placebo effect. And the placebo effect in depression can reach up to 55%. So 55% of patients with depression, when they participate in clinical trials for depression, you can reach up to 55% of an antidepressant effect. So 55 out of 100 patients will respond to an inactive substance for depression. So that means that what we are observing might be due exclusively to a placebo effect. Although we would not expect to have a placebo effect lasting for 21 days. So this is the good news on one side, saying that we have a clue that it might have an antidepressant potential, although we cannot affirm because we don't have a double blind. So that is why we started to do a double-blind, placebo, a randomized, placebo-controlled experiment. So this is the sample that we are still working on that. So we want to recruit 40 patients with refractory depression. When half of them will drink ayahuasca, we already have the ayahuasca characterized. This ayahuasca comes from one of the Brazilian churches that use ayahuasca called the Barquinha. from a friend of mine in Bahia. He produced a whole batch of ayahuasca that we could use throughout the entire experiment. And we are measuring the alkaloids of ayahuasca every 6 months. So every 6 months, we extract a little bit of what we are using, we send for analysis. This is the quantification of dimethyltryptamine and the beta-carbolines. So half of the individuals will drink ayahuasca, half will drink placebo. And we are giving both ayahuasca and placebo in natura as a liquid. This is the selection criteria that we have for these individuals. So they pretty much follow the standards, not having individuals with bipolar disorders, not having individuals with schizophrenia or family history of schizophrenia, and so on. This is the timeline of the project. So we began that in 2014. We have already 34 patients that enrolled in the experiment, although 5 of these patients we're not going to be able to use. So actually what we have is 29 patients. Because we also wanted to understand the long-term effects of ayahuasca, we decided not to restrict our measurements to depressive scales. So we opened up a little bit and we decided to collect many biomarkers. As Jordi was saying, we collect many biomarkers before the experience, so 24 hours before the experience and 24 hours after the experience. This is pretty much how it goes. So we have a selection period where we select the patients. When they are selected, they go through a washout period that varies. So a washout period is a period where the individual is not under the effect of any medication. And the reason why you do that sometimes is not to have an interaction between medications. So what happens is that you have a patient with refractory depression, so that patient doesn't respond to at least 2 conventional drugs. And then you are to switch the drug. The psychiatrist wants to switch the drug. When he wants to do that, then one safety issue is the interaction between the drug that the individual is taking with the new drug that the individual is going to take. So these patients, then they go through a washout period of approximately 2 weeks because most of the patients are on ISSRs. And then after 2 weeks of washout, they come for the experimental session, which lasts about a week. The experimental session then starts on Tuesday. On Tuesday, the patients walk in the hospital. Some of the patients are in the hospital already, but the patients that are not in the hospital, they come to the hospital on Tuesday. They go through a psychiatry evaluation, a neuropsychological evaluation, an MRI and fMRI. Then they come back to the lab. We place the electrodes in the patients. And then they sleep in the lab from Tuesday to Wednesday. They wake up in the lab on Wednesday morning. Then we have a blood sampling on Wednesday morning. Then from 6 a.m. until 10 a.m. they're resting. And we are preparing them for the experience. And then around 10 a.m., the psychiatry gets in, do the whole battery. It evaluates the baseline again for some of those scales. So besides the depressive symptoms, we are evaluating all other kinds of symptoms. And then we have the experimental session, meaning that we give either ayahuasca or placebo to these individuals. They stay in the lab until around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then they're allowed to go home or they go back to where they are in the hospital. They come back on the next day, so they have the experimental session on Wednesday, and then on Thursday they come back and repeat the whole thing again. So they do psychiatry evaluation, neuropsychological evaluation, MRI, they sleep in the lab, wake up on Friday morning, do another blood sampling, do the last evaluation, and then they're allowed to go home. These are some of the biomarkers that we are interested in. So for the psychiatry, we are interested in these 3 scales. We are also adding the BPRS, that's the brief psychiatry, right. And we are also doing the CADS to evaluate for dissociative symptoms. These are the ones that we are conducting before and after. So Tuesday and on 24 hours before and 24 hours after. We're doing neuroimaging, so we have an emotional task, an emotional regulation task, an fMRI task, resting state, and an anatomical MRI. The neuropsychological evaluation, do these runoff tests. We do the sleep EEG. And then for the blood sampling, we are interested basically on BDNF, on TNF-alpha, on the immune system, IL-4, IL-6, and IL-10, and cortisol in the blood. These are the data that we are collecting during the experimental session. So we split the experiment in two. The one experiment will evaluate the long-term effects of ayahuasca. So we collect data before, 24 hours before, and 24 hours after. But we also are collecting data during the experimental session. So during the experimental session, what we have are a whole bunch of psychiatry evaluation, EEG. So they keep with the EEG on through the experimental session. We have 3 scales. The mystical experience questionnaire, the hallucinogenic rating scale, and the Amsterdam resting state questionnaire. So these are the 3 scales that we're applying during the experimental session. And also during the experimental session, we're doing the saliva cortisol every hour. So every hour, the individual do a cortisol. So again, because our interest was to understand the long-term effects of ayahuasca, not only in individuals that have depressive symptoms, we decided to expand the project a little bit more, and we included then in the project 50 individuals with no symptoms of depression, so 50 healthy individuals. This we have concluded already, so 50 individuals have gone through this machine, this weak machine. So, and right now we are working on 2 fronts. The first one is to analyze the data on the healthy individuals, and the second front is to finish up the data acquisition on the patients with depression. I just thought I could show you some data from these 50 healthy individuals that went through the experience. It's important to say that all of them are naives. Both for the control group, we only had 2 people with previous experience with psychedelics. None of them had experience with ayahuasca. The control group, we tried to have as broad as we could, meaning that we have individuals with access to high education, and we have individual that comes from a very difficult reality in Brazil, social, economical reality. And that is our sample, I'd say. So these are the results we have. Very briefly, this is the results on the HRS scale. What you see on the left with the black dots are the effects under the placebo, and on the right, you see the effects on the group that took ayahuasca. These changes were significant in every factor of the scale, so just to give you an intuition of what these factors are evaluating. So for instance, the intensity of the effects, this HRS is 100, it's a questionnaire with 100 questions, and basically what we have is intensity. One of the questions is to rate the intensity of the effect, so rate the intensity of the effect. Cognition, experience like dreamlike cognition, dreamlike experiences, synesthesia, if you felt your body trembling, if you thought of your breathing, if you thought of your heartbeat. Perception, so if you changed the way you saw the world with your eyes open and with your eyes closed. Affect, did you feel safe? And volition, were you controlling the experience? So all of these are significant. The second scale we did was the mystical experience questionnaire, and also we have a significant effect on every factor of the scale. Again, just to give you a hint, mystical means one of the questions is experience of pure being and pure awareness. ineffability, the sense that the experience cannot be described adequately in words. Time and space, loss of usual sense of time, loss of your usual sense of space, and positive mood, feeling of peace and tranquility. One thing that I really liked about this scale is that it is really selective in the sense that if you compare the effects of the HRS, you see that you have effect on placebo. So it's not specific to the effects of the substance. Because, you know, the placebo is responding positively to some of the questions that you're asking. On the other hand, when you look at the mystical experience questionnaire, you see that most of the individuals do not respond positively to anything, so they do not score. The scores is practically zero under the placebo, while under ayahuasca that increases, and that has a significant variance among individuals. So you see that it varies. The second point I want to make is that although this is specific, and we were using an inactive placebo, you see that there is one individual, so each point corresponds to one individual. One individual had a significant mystical experience. My point is that, you know, even with an inactive placebo, you were capable of inducing. The placebo effect is so high that you're actually inducing these type of effects. This is the other scale that we were interested in. I'm not going to go into the details, but the reason why we did this scale is the Amsterdam Resting State Questionnaire, and it allows to evaluate the structure of thinking. So this is something that we are becoming very interested in, which is what changes in our cognition. Because one thing that I always had in the back of my mind is that we as neuroscientists, we are using all the constructs that we have from this cognition, from this usual state of consciousness, to describe the other state of consciousness. So we're using the same base. And with this, what we're hoping to contribute is in the sense that the structure of the whole cognition changes. So we're using the concept of memory, for instance, and we translate the concept of memory and everything that we have gathered around the understanding of how memory are processes in our brain using the awake, normal, regular, conventional state of consciousness that we are most of the time in. In other words, how am I going to describe the process of memory, for instance, when you're dreaming? It's a different thing. It's a different thing. It's not the same thing. It is a different thing that when you realize that you're dreaming, you awake most of the times, or you play with it, for those that have the capability of lucid dreaming. But anyways, so what we see here basically is that there are some structure of thoughts that are increased. So visual thinking increases, word thinking. So I thought in images. That's one of the questions that we have on this factor of visual thought. So a lot of people do say that they thought in images. This is the first one here. Discontinuity of mind. So questions, I'm finishing. Discontinuity of mind. So my thoughts changed very rapidly. This is discontinuity of mind. Verbal thought, I talk to myself, for instance, and planning. I thought of what I need to do. I thought of the future. I thought of something that. So what you see here is that for the three first factors, the visual thought, discontinuity of mind, and verbal thought, all of these increase during ayahuasca, but planning decreases. That's not new. I mean, if I asked for anyone who have taken ayahuasca, they would say, yeah, that makes sense. Usually I'm not thinking about the future. I'm not planning anything. So it makes sense. So why is it that we're excited about it? It's not because it's new. It's because we are starting to get a tool that's capable of quantifying what a lot of us know. So with that, I'd like to conclude thanking a lot of people. That's a huge crew. It's a really huge crew to conduct this experiment. So we have, the way we organized it, we have different groups that are interacting with each other. So we have groups on the psychiatry team, on the biochemistry team, on the psychology team. So we have groups that are changing, and this is, I'd say, the core of the project, and these are the people that are really, conducting this double-blind experiment. So these are the people that I really have to thank, because we're trying to do that in a very friendly and light way. One thing that for me, it's very important and striking is that I'm a physicist. So I'm not a physicist. I've graduated in physics. And I did my master's in physics. The person that's handling the experimental sessions with me is an electrical engineer. So this is our background to deal with, we decided that the psychiatrists would not be in the room. So the psychiatry gets in the room. They're in the next room. We have the experimental session running, and then the psychiatrist team just walks in the room every once in a while to do the evaluation and then walks out. So with that, I'd like to thank. I just want to tell you that we'll have the second ayahuasca conference in Rio Branco, in Acre. So I just want to take 30 seconds to invite you to go to Rio Branco in the Acre, which is, I'd say, one of the most important places for developing of ayahuasca. So thank you so much for your patience.